Welcome to Swift Tale, where unbelievable true stories come to life with twists that keep you on the edge of your seat. Today's story begins inside a tense courtroom where justice was supposed to prevail, until a police officer crossed a line no one expected. Have you ever witnessed a moment so shocking that the entire room froze? If this is your first time here, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because today's tale is one you won't forget. Our story centers around a black military police officer, trained, disciplined, and respected, who found herself humiliated when a local cop slapped her in open court, believing she was powerless, believing she wouldn't dare fight back. But within seconds, the entire courtroom learned who they were dealing with, a soldier who didn't need a weapon to defend herself. This story matters because it reveals the consequences of unchecked authority, the strength of discipline, and the moment where disrespect met the wrong woman at the wrong time. Stay tuned, because what happens next will flip the entire courtroom, and this officer's career upside down. Welcome to Swift Tale, where real-life stories unfold with suspense, emotion, and powerful lessons. Today's story takes place inside a packed courtroom, an environment built on order, rules, and justice, until one shocking moment changed everything. Have you ever seen someone abuse their authority so boldly that the entire room went silent? If this is your first time visiting the channel, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss stories like this again. Our tale begins with a black military police officer attending a routine hearing, expecting nothing more than a formal legal process. But instead, a local cop, arrogant, dismissive, and certain of his power, slapped her in front of everyone, believing she would simply endure the humiliation. What he didn't know was that she was trained, disciplined, and fully capable of defending herself. Within seconds, the courtroom witnessed a moment that would not only flip the power dynamic, but also end one officer's career for good. This story matters because it exposes the danger of unchecked authority, the strength of discipline, and the importance of standing up for dignity when someone crosses a line. Stay with us, because this tale only gets more intense from here. The day began like any other inside the downtown courthouse, where officers, attorneys, and defendants filed in and out of courtrooms as hearings progressed. Among them was Sergeant Maya Lewis, a respected black military police officer known for her calm discipline and sharp instincts. She wasn't there as a defendant or even as a witness, only to support a fellow soldier dealing with a minor traffic case. Dressed in her formal military uniform, she carried herself with quiet authority, instantly drawing respectful glances from some and irritated stares from others. One of those irritated eyes belonged to Officer Bradley Knox, a local cop who had a history of clashing with military personnel. To him, Maya's uniform wasn't a symbol of service, it was a challenge to his ego. From the moment she stepped in, he seemed determined to provoke her, watching her every move with a smirk that suggested trouble was only a breath away. Yet Maya remained composed, unaware that a tense confrontation was already brewing, one that would erupt with a single unforgivable strike. As the courtroom grew busier, Officer Knox positioned himself closer to Sergeant Maya, pretending to monitor the area, though everyone nearby could sense the tension radiating from him. Maya kept her focus forward, refusing to acknowledge his attempts to intimidate her. But Knox, fueled by a mix of insecurity and misplaced authority, pushed closer until he was only inches from her shoulder. When she calmly asked him to respect her personal space, his simmering resentment boiled over. With witnesses watching in disbelief, Knox suddenly raised his hand and slapped her across the face, the sharp crack echoing through the room. Gasps filled the courtroom. No one could believe what they had just seen. But what stunned everyone even more was Maya's reaction, or rather, her lack of reaction. Instead of lashing out, she remained still, staring at Knox with a cold, steady gaze that said more than any threat ever could. In that silent moment, it became clear. Knox had just crossed a line that would change everything. The courtroom erupted into chaos immediately after the slap, with spectators shouting in shock and the judge pounding his gavel to regain control. Officer Knox, suddenly realizing that everyone had witnessed his outburst, tried to cover his tracks by shouting that Maya had been threatening him, a claim so absurd that even his fellow officers hesitated to back him up. Maya, still composed, simply lifted her chin and stated, "I did nothing to you." Her unwavering calm only made Knox look even more unstable. Judge Harland, a stern but fair man with decades on the bench, glared down at Knox with simmering anger. "Officer, stand down immediately," he ordered, his voice echoing through the courtroom. But Knox, now spiraling, stepped toward Maya again, trying to justify his attack by barking commands she had no reason to obey. It was in that moment, when Knox advanced in full aggression, that Maya instinctively shifted her weight, preparing for whatever came next, and unknowingly setting the stage for a moment that would stun the entire courtroom. As Officer Knox lunged forward, his temper completely eclipsing his judgment, Maya finally moved, not out of anger, but out of trained reflex. In one swift, controlled motion, she sidestepped his charge and raised her forearm defensively. Knox's momentum did the rest. He stumbled, overextended, and before he could regain balance, Maya used a simple but precise military defensive maneuver to redirect his force. The room went silent as Knox fell backward, hitting the floor with a heavy thud. But the moment he tried to scramble up, still raging, Maya calmly but firmly placed him in a restraint hold, one executed with such professional precision that even the other officers stood frozen. She didn't punch him. She didn't strike him. She simply immobilized him with a technique designed to prevent injuries, proving unmistakably who the real professional in the room was. The spectators stared wide-eyed, not because she attacked him, but because she had neutralized a violent officer with the discipline of someone who knew exactly what she was doing, and someone who refused to be disrespected. The courtroom, moments earlier buzzing with chaos, now fell into an eerie stillness as Maya maintained the restraint hold, ensuring Knox couldn't injure himself or anyone else. Judge Harland rose from his seat, his jaw clenched in outrage, not at Maya, but at the officer who had disgraced the courtroom with his violent outburst. "Release him," the judge ordered gently to Maya. Then turned sharply to the bailiffs. "Take Officer Knox into custody, immediately." The bailiffs, who had hesitated earlier out of shock, quickly surged forward to handcuff Knox, who was now sputtering excuses and accusing Maya of attacking him. But with dozens of witnesses and security cameras capturing everything, his lies evaporated the moment they left his mouth. As he was dragged away, the judge praised Maya for her restraint, stating that her actions had likely prevented an even more dangerous escalation. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted from fear to admiration. People murmured praises, shaking their heads at how quickly professionalism had defeated brutality. Maya simply straightened her uniform, her face calm, though her heart still raced from the adrenaline of the encounter. With Officer Knox removed from the courtroom, Judge Harland called for a brief recess to allow everyone to recover from the shock. Maya stepped aside, taking a slow breath as the tension in her muscles finally eased. Several spectators approached her, some offering quiet words of gratitude, others expressing outrage at what she had endured. One elderly woman even clasped Maya's hand, whispering, "You handled yourself with grace, dear." Maya, humble as always, simply nodded and thanked them, insisting she had only acted out of necessity. Moments later, a senior court-martial approached her with surprising news. The judge had requested to speak with her privately in his chambers. The invitation wasn't disciplinary, it was a gesture of respect. As Maya made her way toward the judge's chambers, she remained unaware that Knox's reckless attack and her composed response had already begun circulating through the courthouse. People were talking, whispering, and taking sides, but almost everyone agreed on one thing. Maya's professionalism had exposed a truth about Knox that had been hidden for far too long. Inside Judge Harland's chambers, the atmosphere shifted from chaotic to calm, but the seriousness remained. The judge invited Maya to sit, his expression a mixture of concern and admiration. He began by apologizing on behalf of the courthouse, calling Knox's behavior unacceptable, unlawful, and deeply unprofessional. Maya listened respectfully, assuring him she held no personal anger, only disappointment that an officer entrusted with authority had chosen to abuse it. The judge nodded and then revealed something she hadn't expected. Multiple complaints had already been filed against Officer Knox over the past few years, yet each one had mysteriously disappeared before reaching disciplinary review. Maya's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in understanding. Knox's attack on her wasn't random. It was part of a long pattern of aggression shielded by a broken system. Judge Harland informed her that this time it would be different. With the entire courtroom as witnesses and security footage capturing everything, Knox's actions would finally lead to a full investigation. Maya left the chamber with a sense of resolve, unaware that the case was about to uncover corruption much bigger than one aggressive officer. Back in the courtroom, the judge called everyone to order and began reviewing the security footage that captured Knox's assault. The image replayed in slow motion on a large screen, the slap, Maya's calm stance, and her swift, controlled defensive response. Gasps echoed through the room as spectators, lawyers, and officers watched the sequence unfold, leaving no doubt about who had acted aggressively. Judge Harlan spoke firmly, his voice echoing through the high-ceilinged chamber. It is evident that Officer Knox violated both the law and the code of conduct expected of any law enforcement professional. Sergeant Lewis acted within her rights to protect herself. The courtroom, once chaotic, now fell into a hush of awe and respect. Even Knox's fellow officers, some of whom had tried to defend him verbally, now avoided eye contact, realizing the severity of his actions. Legal experts present murmured about precedent and accountability, noting that it was rare to see such immediate consequences for a law enforcement officer acting out of rage. Maya, standing tall, allowed herself a small, controlled exhale, knowing the justice system, at least this time, was finally working as it should. Following the judge's review of the footage, Officer Knox faced immediate disciplinary action. His badge was temporarily suspended, and an internal affairs investigation was launched to examine his entire record. The complaints that had previously vanished from the system were reopened, revealing a disturbing pattern of aggression, intimidation, and abuse of authority. Knox, who had entered the courtroom with confidence and arrogance, now sat in silence, realizing that his career and reputation were hanging by a thread. Meanwhile, Maya remained composed, her professionalism shining through every interaction. Lawyers and officers approached her to express support, noting that her quick thinking and training had not only prevented serious injury, but had also safeguarded the integrity of the courtroom itself. The message was clear: authority does not grant immunity from accountability, and anyone who abuses power will face consequences. As Knox was escorted out under supervision, whispers filled the courthouse, acknowledging Maya's courage and skill. Her actions had not only defended herself in that moment, but had also sparked a broader conversation about justice, respect, and the responsibilities that come with holding a badge. News of the courtroom incident spread rapidly, both inside the courthouse and across social media platforms. Clips of the slap and Maya's disciplined response circulated online, igniting debates about authority, professionalism, and racial dynamics in law enforcement. Many praised Maya for her calm, controlled, and immediate defense, highlighting how she turned a moment of personal danger into a demonstration of skill and composure. Support poured in from military colleagues, community leaders, and the general public, all applauding her courage and the swift justice that followed. Meanwhile, discussions about Knox intensified. People were shocked that an officer could act so recklessly in front of witnesses and cameras. The story also sparked conversations about broader systemic issues, why complaints had previously been ignored, how power could be misused, and the importance of holding officers accountable. Amid the public attention, Maya remained humble, focusing on the fact that she had simply done what was necessary to protect herself. Shadowing her throughout this period was the recognition that moments like these weren't just about one person. They were about reinforcing a culture of accountability, respect, and integrity in positions of authority. After the immediate legal fallout, Maya took time to process the emotional weight of the incident. Though she had acted with precision and discipline, the adrenaline, fear, and tension of the moment left traces she couldn't immediately shake. She reflected on how quickly a routine courtroom appearance had escalated into a life-altering confrontation, and how fragile authority could be when misused. Support from her colleagues and superiors helped, but it was her own inner strength that carried her through the lingering stress. She also considered the broader impact of her actions, the message it sent to anyone who believed they could intimidate or assault her with impunity. Maya realized that standing firm wasn't just about defending herself. It was about protecting the integrity of her profession, the safety of her peers, and setting an example for future officers. In quiet moments, she revisited the memories of that split second when she reacted, acknowledging both the fear and the controlled focus that allowed her to succeed. This reflection strengthened her resolve, reinforcing that professionalism, courage, and discipline weren't just abstract qualities, they were tools that could safeguard lives and demand accountability in moments of crisis. As the investigation into Officer Knox continued, the consequences of his actions became increasingly clear. Internal Affairs uncovered multiple incidents of misconduct that had previously been swept under the rug, painting a disturbing pattern of aggression and abuse of authority. Knox attempted to shift blame, claiming provocation, but the evidence, including security footage and eyewitness accounts, left no room for doubt. His credibility crumbled as colleagues and supervisors spoke out, confirming the long-standing issues that had been ignored. Public scrutiny intensified as news outlets reported on the incident, and pressure mounted for Knox to face full accountability. Meanwhile, Maya's reputation soared not because she sought recognition, but because her calm, disciplined response highlighted a stark contrast between professionalism and reckless aggression. Her actions became a case study for law enforcement training, emphasizing restraint, preparedness, and integrity under pressure. The officer who had once believed his authority made him untouchable now faced career-ending consequences, while Maya remained a symbol of strength and measured courage, proving that true power lies not in domination, but in control and principle. The courtroom reconvened one final time to address the aftermath of the incident. Judge Harland delivered a decisive ruling, formally recognizing Maya's actions as entirely justified and within her rights to defend herself. Officer Knox was officially reprimanded and faced charges for assault, with the judge noting the severity of his misconduct and the danger it posed not only to Maya, but to the integrity of the court. Legal experts commented on the rare immediacy of justice, noting that the combination of video evidence, eyewitness testimony, and Maya's disciplined response left no ambiguity. Beyond the courtroom, the ruling sent a broader message to law enforcement agencies and the public. Abuse of power will not be tolerated, and professional conduct matters as much as the badge one wears. Maya's colleagues applauded the outcome, recognizing that her courage had preserved both personal dignity and institutional respect. As the proceedings concluded, the tension that had gripped the courtroom dissipated, replaced by a sense of closure and affirmation that justice, when exercised correctly, could triumph over recklessness and intimidation. With the courtroom emptying and the chaos finally settled, Maya stood quietly, reflecting on the whirlwind of events that had unfolded in mere minutes. The adrenaline had faded, leaving space for both relief and contemplation. She thought about the choices she had made, the discipline and training that had guided her instincts, and the clarity of mind that allowed her to act decisively under pressure. Across the country, the story was being shared, celebrated as an example of courage, professionalism, and the importance of standing up to abuse of power. Social media buzzed with messages of support, military colleagues praised her composure, and civilians alike were inspired by her restraint and confidence. But for Maya, the greatest satisfaction came from knowing she had protected herself without losing her integrity, proving that real strength lies not in aggression, but in control, skill, and honor. As she left the courthouse, she encouraged others to hold themselves to the same standards, reminding viewers that justice is not just a system, it is the principle of standing firm for what is right. And to all those watching, she offered a simple message: courage, discipline, and integrity matter. Never underestimate the power of standing your ground. With that, the story closed, leaving a lasting impression that reverberated far beyond the walls of the courtroom.